you looking at, nerd? Huh?
And dirty of it.
You have to. Oh, good text. You have to explain. Okay, so I just got so distracted by that text. God
Yeah,
damn it.
he's really good at this today, motherfucker.
Savage.
Our sponsors
Actively
flaming
sending
us
us
right
hate
now.
texts.
Yeah, he's flaming us in the middle of a show.
During us, because we're not smart enough to be explaining these stock issues. So he knows it, and he is just
I can get
hitting
really
us.
technical with it.
We don't want to get technical, but
Yeah,
here's the,
that's the
here's
thing
the
is
deal.
I don't wanna get technical
Here's the
with
deal.
it.
Something that Chris kind of jumped over a second ago. It's like they only had 100 stocks, and they took a shortage out on like 120 stocks. So like more than there was actually available. The
Yeah, closer to
fucking
150.
balls on these guys to think that this company was going to fail that hard. That's how much they pushed in.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about tons of fucking money that they gambled on, essentially saying that GameStop was going to fail. Lo and behold, Chris, go back to what you were saying about the Redditor guys.
So-
They saw this and they were like, wait.
So there's a subreddit called Wall Street Bets that I've been following for about a year now. Our friend Nick put me onto it, and I've been following it heavily. Lost a ton of money last year. Not a ton. I got $1,200 worth of my portfolio trying to figure out what the fuck I was doing, following these retards on Wall Street Bets. And one guy gets on there. Deep fucking Value is his Reddit handle. YouTube channel is Roaring Kitty. Guy's fucking super smart if you want to go check out his YouTube. He calls us out and he basically says, hey, these guys are so shorted on this that if you essentially either A, hold the stock at the current price, B, blow it up and push it to where they can't buy back, they force it into a supply and demand situation where these guys are bleeding out money by paying these APR rates back that go up the more the stock goes the opposite direction. And if we hold, we could see what's called a short squeeze. So a short squeeze had happened in 2008 to Volkswagen, and some other companies held the stock against hedge funds, and the stock bounced because the supply was so low, so the demand skyrocketed for them to sell off their negative positions, and it essentially called a short squeeze, which caused the stock to go up like an insane amount of money. I think it went from like $200 a share to like $1,000 a share in a couple of days, which is unheard of. So you're forcing these hedge funds to make a decision: A, manipulate the stock market in front of everybody, or B, sell off your positions for a huge loss and lose a ton of money. We're talking like $15 billion hedge fund. So you're talking a lot of money. These guys hold a lot of money and they manage a lot of money for people. And that was the goal, was to drive up the stock price, hold the line, I guess you could say, and then wait for them to sell off. Is that what happened? Not really.
Kind of. Not really and kind of. So some people obviously made money. They sold at the
I
right
made money.
time. Well,
I sold
you
at
know,
the right
and I
time.
want to get to this. I want to like talk about this because I don't know how serious I want to get on it, but it is interesting to see the media, the difference in media coverage per channel. The way that Fox covered it, the way that NBC covered it. It's weird that it's politicized, but it is. It's fucking NBC covers it like the only thing I ever saw on NBC was about this little kid whose mom helped him buy a couple GameStop stocks a couple years ago, and he made $3,000 off this whole thing. That's it. That's the only thing they talked about. They didn't talk about people losing their livelihoods. They didn't talk about the dead seriousness of the situation. And the way that Fox is covering it is like this giant conspiracy, and which is honestly more my opinion of it is the way that they were able to manipulate the market, the Robin Hood's reaction to the situation. Everything that transpired post them losing billions of dollars, because it wasn't millions, it was billions of fucking dollars these hedge funds are losing on a month. And what did those hedge funds do? They doubled down, and they doubled down, and they're going to continue to double down until they make their money that they wanted to make. So it's like, did it happen? Did they win? I don't really think they did.
Well, we saw a lot of the events that transpired really recently in the past, I would say 2 to 3 weeks, were uncomfortably obvious to the eyes that are in the game. To the layperson that's just sitting around, you don't really see what happens. And what was happening is these hedge funds, one could theorize, because of the people that were in the games, So you have Melvin Capital, who were the big hedge funds that shorted the stock. They have friends in Citadel, which is another hedge fund. Citadel buys information from Robinhood, like Facebook sells information. Well, Robinhood sells information, which is a stock brokerage that a lot of the retail investors, like everyday Joes like me,
which really,
buy
at
off
the end
of.
of the day, it seems super counterintuitive to what they're. I mean, even the name Robinhood, you feel like it's stealing from the poor or stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Meanwhile,
let's talk about what happened, what Robinhood did. Unless you're getting
that's
there.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I want to talk about for a sec. It's like it blows my mind that a company like this, its selling point is that we're for the average Joe. We're for the average Joe. Meanwhile, they're making more money, obviously making more money because they're willing to side with the hedge funds rather than the average Joes. They're making more money off of selling your information than they are working with you. So
they make
that's
very minimal money
blatant.
off of me. Like they have 0%
Right.
commissions. They do nothing. All they have for me is I'm a catalyst of buying and selling, and they're taking my information that I buy and sell with, and then the hedge funds can use that to their advantage or disadvantage, however they choose to do it. I don't know. But
Well,
these companies that are buying this information were in with the hedge fund that was actively going against GameStop. And then more and more through this events that transpire, Robinhood limits people from buying positions into GameStop.
And you say limit, they shut down
Yeah.
for a full 24 hours. They shut down. You couldn't buy
Any
GameStop
buying.
off of their anybody.
Yes.
And then they were like, they sent a random email out of nowhere saying, okay, we're going to reopen it, but it's going to be limited buying and it's going to be restricted and all this shit. We're going to investigate it. It was absolute nonsense. And they were the one that got the most heat, but they weren't the only company. Try getting on WebBull. Try getting on TD Ameritrade. You couldn't get the motherfucking stock. It was mind-blowing what was going on the day of. And it's blatant, like you said. There's no other word for it. It's blatant how these companies are coexisting where they're not making money off of your average Joe, really. You know, the 10 cents transaction that they're making off of you or whatever versus the $1 million check that they're getting wrote at the end of the month written. This is why we're not smart enough to be talking. I don't even know what word to say right there. So sending them, it's mind-blowing. It doesn't surprise me. It's not like I should be over the top, sorry, but it feels like a federal offense. It feels like someone needs to go to jail for this shit. And they're going to pin it on the Robin Hood guys like it's their fucking fault. But they're just getting paid. They're the snakes down the road. Who are the fucking monsters up at the top of the hill? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the main issue is it was a blatant move to manipulate markets in a theory. The other theory that they've said is that they were not able to get the access to the shares, and thus they didn't have the liquidity to cover those shares. So their closing houses that they use, blah, 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 technical terms. Basically, they're saying they couldn't get a hold of the stock. That's what they're saying. And then they slowly started releasing more and more availability to buy the stock. So what happens in that time frame when Robinhood kind of shuts down, essentially, they go from no shares of buying, you can only sell, which helps the hedge funds who are trying to get the price to go down. So now Robinhood says you can't buy, and then it goes to you can buy 1 share. And then the next day it's you can buy 5 shares. And then the next day it's 100 shares. And then now they just now released it to where I think yesterday was 500 shares, which was the 4th of February. And today now you can buy anything. Well, the stock drove down slowly but surely. People were getting shook off, ladder attacks, whatever you want to call it. Now the stock went from a high of like $400 a share almost, I think a little bit higher than that, to now it's down to like $67 a share today or something, $70 a share, right around there. So how is that not a blatant manipulation of the median, the stock?
Let's talk about the motivation of the Redditors real quick. Why did they decide GameStop was the one that they were going to step in front of and go, no, you're not going to tell us that this company's going to go under. We're going to keep it alive for longer than you guys want. Because even $60 is more than what it was at $5, which is when they said, which is what it was going to crash at. So $60 is not that bad for a stock that was really priced super low not that long ago. And I'm not look, in GameStop I think was averaging about $40 to $50 a stock anyways prior to this. So
before the whole squeeze happened, it was like closer to $7 a share. This time last year was around $7 to $8 a share. It's pretty low.
What the fuck?
So
Damn,
if you look up the
That's
financials,
crazy.
I believe it is. I can.
No,
check
you're
right now.
probably right, because I mean that means that what is going on right now brought the average up so fucking high, because that's obviously
as
what I
of
was looking at.
February 13th of last year is $4.11 a share.
Which is insane. So even from that last year to what it is now of $60-something, that is an impressive. It's not $480, but it's substantial. It's a lot more. It's 100+% more.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question about the Redditors kind of backing GameStop, nobody gives a fuck about GameStop right now. GameStop was an opportunity for the average Joe to feel like they get ahead in life. How many times have you looked at your finances and gone, how the fuck am I going to be comfortable paying this for the next 30 years on my mortgage? How am I going to be comfortable paying for this car payment? Why do I have to take out a car payment? My grandparents never even had to. They worked a part-time job. My grandmother stayed at home, and they paid off their house. Like, this generation has moved into an aspect of, like, we're sick and tired of being held down. It feels like the gap between the middle class and the upper class in the United States has just grown and grown and grown. And this is our opportunity that we saw. Like, this is our lotto ticket. We can hold these guys by the balls. GameStop's analytics have nothing to do with what happened. It was a movement. It was people finally sitting down and saying, fuck this. I'm sick and tired of being held down. And now this company wants to essentially short this stock and make it look so bad by putting out bad news. When you short it that heavily, you make the company look like a bad investment, so people won't invest into it. And they're eventually going to get their way. They're going to bankrupt GameStop, which is going to employ 2,000 to 3,000 people that are working, that are people that are just trying to make a living. And your goal is to run them out of business.